This is the long anticipated Swapcast featuring the great flat earth expert, David Weiss. We've all wanted to hear what he has to say, get him on the show and our shows, have him lay out kind of the conversation starter. And we're going to just dig into this topic that so many people have asked us to. It's the Swapcast of the ages. So I'll just let everybody say what their shows are and we'll get it started. I am Monica Perez of the Propaganda Report and the Drive Time News Blast. And our technical host, let's go that way. E. Willie, what you got?
Hello, I'm E. Willie with Truth or Theory with my sidekick co-host, JP. We're excited to be here.
Yep. Pumped.
Maddie, what you got?
Hey y'all, I'm Matty K from Erase the State, and I am excited to get flat smacked today.
Brian, the CE5 guy, tell us what you got. You got a little bit more to say, don't you? Because this is new.
It is very new to me. I'm more here in a student mindset. I'm part of the Aliens and Ascension podcast. We haven't published our episodes yet, but that's coming soon. And yeah, I'm really honored to be here.
Andy? You got to unmute. Come on, Andy. You got to unmute.
Bottom left, Andy.
Sorry, guys. I'm brand new to this. I'm going to be joining Brian. I'm also brand new to this. I met Brian through the CE5 program. If you want to know why I'm called Avian Andy, I'll be happy to tell you. That's a very long story. And I'm just excited to get involved in kind of this podcast community.
All right, let's do it. David, do you want to just dive in, share the screen, show us stuff? We're going to do audio and visual. So if we're going to post some video too, but for people who are just listening podcast wise, then you're going to try to walk us through some of your visual aids. Are you not?
I'm going to do my best, but I'm so excited to be here. Is it Bry, the CES guy? You have a show called Aliens and Ascension?
Yes, with Avian Andy over there.
All right, so we're going to talk about aliens because aliens and flat Earth merge together. There is an explanation, and it makes a lot of sense. My name is David Weiss. My YouTube channel is the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, just DITRH. I specialize in short videos. Like when I put out a 6-minute video, people go, oh, a documentary, right? So my videos are short and to the point because to get somebody to listen that, is just living with their lifelong programming of flat Earth, which is you're an idiot, you're a moron, we've known it for 500 years, the Greeks have proved it, boats over the horizon, all the stuff. They think it's ridiculous and won't go to a feature-length movie about it. So I feed them little bits of information. I'm kind of like a crack dealer, just giving out a little tastes. Because I was that guy. The podcast I did was Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. It was all about conspiracies, aliens, everything. And then Flat Earth came up, and people started sending me Flat Earth videos, and I banned them from my social media. I wouldn't watch a 1-minute video because it's ridiculous. This was 6 years ago, okay? And then finally, I was speaking with fellow researcher Sophia Smallstorm, and we were talking about some of the crazy deceptions that are going on in the world, and I was just overwhelmed. And I said to her, Sophia, there's so much deception in this world. And she goes, oh, David, it's worse than that. I'm like, what now? And she goes, I think the Earth might be flat. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And I actually just short-circuited. She sent me a couple videos, and I said, that's it. I'm going to prove the globe. I'm not even going to debunk flat Earth. I'm going to prove the globe because I don't even know what flat Earth is. And 2 weeks, 0 sleep, very little food. I came out the other side going, oh my God, we don't live on a globe. I still wouldn't admit that the Earth was flat and stationary, just like we observe, but over time, I'm now the host of the Flat Earth podcast, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, every podcast player has it. I am host of Monday Night Raw on Truth Frequency Radio with Jeranism. I am talking to you guys. I have 3 major interviews today. I'm booking interviews all the time. I've been on InfoWars, Veritas Radio, SGT Report, I've been on so many shows, and it's growing. And with the bottom line is, people go, this is the last thing. This is the scenario when someone is like, the Earth is obviously a globe, and they give you, what about this? And they shut it down. Next thing, what about this? Shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. They go like, everybody goes, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter. Flat or round, I still have to go to work tomorrow. Okay. That's how we got into this crazy situation that we're in this world right now. Because when you don't know where you are, what you are, or who you are, and you think you're lost in space on a spinning speck of nothing, after a crazy evolution chain happened and created you with eyes and everything and fingers that work, you are lost, and you can be convinced of anything. So that's why, even now, with the insanity in this world, I am pushing the truth, the true Earth. Okay. I like to call it the globe lie, because that's not as triggering for people. And there's a big answer why. We'll get into that during the show. How's that?
Sounds great. I love that you're coming at it from that, because my one thing was, hey, if you live on a prison planet, do you really care what shape it is?
That's the whole thing.
You make a good point. It's very important to know who you are, and that whole evolution thing. So for me, that the Darwinian stuff, even dinosaurs, I'm kind of like, they created a history for us that I find implausible, but it does negate context, meaning, and I think that's why they did it. But what would it mean to actually know the true story? So I'm open to what you think the true story is.
So let you know, there's two types of people that defend the globe. People that just defend it because they don't want the rug ripped out from underneath them, and their egos can't handle that. And then there's a smaller group of people that maybe they're paid to lie. Maybe they're part of the deception. I think there's very few of those. There's more just people that are so indoctrinated, they will fight to protect their globe, their ball. They don't want their ball taken away, their children, okay? And those are the ones that don't even know what their model is. Who here knows how fast the globe Earth is spinning, according to science?
I should know.
You should know, but you don't.
For listening to your show, what is it, like 66,000 miles an hour?
Well, the wrong motion. It's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Okay, so if you're on the equator, you're moving 1,000 miles an hour. That's 1.5 times the speed of sound. Okay, that alone should prove that the Earth doesn't spin. Okay, that's just ridiculous. Okay, it's orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles per hour. Okay, that's a speed that you can't even imagine. Okay, while it's spinning and orbiting, it's chasing the sun, which is flying through space at over 500,000 miles per hour. And that entire system is going sideways at over 1 million miles per hour. Okay. But every year, like tonight, if you go out and chart where the stars are in the sky at midnight or 10 o'clock or whatever, and then next year at the exact same night, go out at the exact same time, all of those stars will be in the exact same position. Every single one of them, it will not have moved a fraction of an inch. Okay. That's impossible with all of these motions going on in a beehive, crazy galaxy. Okay. So with that said, who believes we live on a ball? Are we done?
I believe that we live on a ball. And I'll tell you one reason why I think I saw it, but I'm sure there are other explanations for it. I once flew in the Concorde, which was at 60,000 feet up, and it looked like I was seeing the curvature of the Earth. Like, it completely comported with what I expected, and I saw it. And on a journey around that time, I had a big business trip, and I flew from New York to Frankfurt to Singapore to Indonesia to Tokyo to LA to New York in about a week. And everything seemed to be consistent with my expectations about where the sun would be and sunrise and sunset and all that. So when I heard of flat Earth theory, I thought, I think I experienced the round Earth.
Okay, so let me address that in a whole bunch of different ways. First, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the high priest of the helio-nonsensical model, says that you can't even see the curve at 130,000 feet. Concorde flies at 60, 50, whatever. Let's call it 70. Let's call it 70.
60, yeah.
Well, he says you can't see it at almost twice that height, but I don't believe anything he says, so we'll just wipe that off the table. You are looking, when we look.
Actually, the fact that he says this is the most compelling argument against it, to be honest.
All right, nice. So the way we see is, our eyes look into the distance and the ceiling and the floor converge due to perspective. The sky and the earth, the ceiling and the floor in a long hallway will converge. Have you ever been to one of those long Vegas hotels? The ceiling and the floor touch it from one end to the other because the angular size gets so small you can't see the difference. So that's how our eyes work. We see to a point of convergence, whether it's 10 miles or 100 miles or 500 miles, it doesn't matter. We see when we're looking forward, we'll call that 12 o'clock, we see the merging of the top and the bottom. Well, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, all the way around, it's the same distance. And if you plotted that out, you're plotting a big flat circle, okay? And in your mind's programming, when you see that curve, you think sphere because you've been told you live on a sphere. I took a picture of my dining room table where the shadows were just right, and then I blurred the table so you couldn't see what the texture was, and I told everyone it was a sphere, and they believed it, okay? It's because of programming. It's because of what you expect to see. The other bigger thing on the Concorde, it's never one thing, is the windows are curved. The windows are curved, especially at the edge, and that curves the bottoms down. When you look through even a regular windshield on a plane, regular plane, it's at an angle and the horizon moves because you're looking through angled glass. But you're looking out a curve, and just that tiny bit of curve and your expectation, you're seeing a sphere. But I have yet to see a Concorde picture that shows a curve. People are like, well, what about this picture? And you put a line on it and it's straight.
I can't, I'll never be on it again. I don't even think they fly it anymore.
They retired it for some reason. I wonder why.
One blew up on the runway, but that could be why. But
so did the Hindenburg, but that's a whole nother
Yes,
podcast.
and they don't use airships anymore either.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Oh, I'm happy to hear all of it. But anyway, so all I can say is my memory, which was, worked a lot back then and I could barely stay awake on the thing, but I just remember looking out the window thinking, wow, that is freaky. But it doesn't mean anything. I can't evaluate it now. Yeah.
So this behind me, I have a shot from a balloon that's up at 110,000 feet. And that's the Earth. If you look at the horizon, it's completely flat. But more importantly, look at the sun. Does that sun look like it's 93 million miles away? Or does it look like it's right over the Earth, over there? It looks like it's right there, and if I had a slingshot, I could probably hit it.
Yeah, but there's no atmosphere that you're viewing it through at that level, are you?
Oh, so you think that you can see a sun 93 million miles away, but also we don't see any stars either. Don't you guys find that a little odd? Like we never see stars in space.
I think that's weird about the moon landing. I think for us, I'm not familiar with that picture, but I thought that the reason you wouldn't see stars, I imagine if that picture went out, you would start seeing stars as the kind of light pollution from the sun went away.
Yeah, their astronauts can't even get their story straight. Some say they saw stars, some say they didn't see stars.
Well, I don't believe in the moon landing.
Right. Well, that's good.
I don't
that's
care
good.
what they said.
We sent a balloon up at nighttime in the Arizona desert with high definition cameras looking up. And before it took off, we could see a beautiful starlit night. So we know that the cameras were set to see the stars. Okay. And as that balloon went up through the clear sky, you think it's even going to get clearer and brighter, like when you go to the top of a mountain away from the city. Well, what happened was by the time it got to about 80,000 feet, almost all the stars were gone. Okay. You want me to explain that? I can't explain it. Okay, I don't know the answer, but the heliocentric model makes no sense. We're still in the atmosphere. We have less pollution, less clouds, less everything, and the stars are all disappearing. There's only a couple balloon shots above that show stars off in the distance.
So if I don't know that that's what you're saying is true. I don't have that.
Of
You know,
course.
I'm not familiar with that. So maybe I would definitely, though, if I witnessed that, I would dismiss it. And I would say that the reason was maybe the way looking sideways through the atmosphere at the stars or whatever. I don't know. But when you get through it, are you saying that you never see stars again? Nobody ever goes into space?
We don't believe that space exists as it's described.
Yeah,
But
what do you believe?
So here's the thing. When you're trying to prove the shape of the earth, like right now, if I told you guys, look at the lights in your ceiling and tell me what shape the floor is based on the lights in your ceiling, that's ridiculous. Okay? We can't go up. So anything we see in the sky, the only true thing that we can say is they're lights. The sun, the moon, the stars, and everything else that we see is a light because we're seeing light. There's nothing else we can say. We don't know how far they are. We don't know how big they are. We don't know what they're made of. We don't know anything. Now we can do tests and experiments and say, hey, we've simulated this. We've made this work here in this model, but we can't say anything definitively because we can't get up there. So
what about the math of the angles, like the way you talk about the hallway in Vegas?
Yeah.
Doesn't that have validity?
For the curve of the earth, are we talking about Aristophanes?
I'm talking about to figure out distances. Are you just saying a point of light is just too tiny to actually be able to apply that?
Yeah, you can't triangulate unless you have unless you have a known angle and a known distance. You can't say that the moon is X number of miles away. The way they supposedly figured out how far the moon was is they bounced a laser off of it before anybody went there, before we had a laser reflector on there. Okay. And then all of a sudden we had a laser reflector on there and now it's no longer being used. We don't know how big anything was. The sun is 93 million miles away. I was like, who figured that out and how'd they figure it out? And if you dig in, you won't find out who, but what you'll find out is they did some calculations when Venus transited the sun. I don't know if you guys remember that a bunch of years ago, and it's happened more than once. Venus went in front of the sun and you could see it. Well, it started like on the East Coast, like a minute or two or whatever before it started on the West Coast. That shows you that they calculated the angles, but they did all the calculations based on the idea that Venus was about the same size as Earth. Where did they get that from? It's a wild assumption. Okay, so all of the math is based on an assumption that that little light in the sky that could be the size of an apple is the size of Earth. Okay, it's all nonsense. It's pseudoscience. It's scientism.
Where would somebody go to look into this stuff and do research on their own? Because I heard you say that Flat Earth Society is completely shilled, and I'm glad you said that because that was the first place I went.
That's how they get you. It's called a gatekeeping, government-controlled opposition site. If you Google Flat Earth, that's where you get taken. And then they have a little bit of truth and a bunch of baloney. Like the Earth is rising at 5.8 meter or 9.8 meters per second. And that's gravity. Well, that makes no sense. We don't believe that. We don't believe the Earth is moving, nothing like that. We don't believe that gravity is due to mass. And we have experiments that can show you that that's not true. They also have, the turn up flat Earth floating in space. People that fight the flat Earth, they think that we flat Earthers think that Earth is a pizza and all of the other planets are balls. Okay. We don't think that at all. Everything that we see in the sky are within the Earth system. Okay. There's lots of people that say, flat Earth is a religious thing, because there's so many Christians in flat Earth. My podcast partner, Matt Long, he is a Christian, and he always leads with Bible verses. I never lead with the Bible verse. I lead with the science, and I go, and by the way, it's in the Bible. The Bible in Genesis says, God separated the waters from the waters and created the sun and then the moon. And don't quote me on Genesis, but it's all there. But if you don't believe in the Bible, that's useless. It's useless information. So why go there? Everybody could look at science, right?
Hey, speaking of science and gravity, I'm curious to hear what you think gravity is, because Einstein, general theory of relativity, says that gravity is basically a result of the curvature of space-time. And, back in like the 1920s, whatever, they had the scientists go for a lunar eclipse, and it proved that you could see the stars behind the sun that you shouldn't be able to see unless the light was bending around the sun. Okay, so if you accept the fact that space is curved, how could the Earth, which exists in space, be flat?
Okay, so those are a bunch of wild assumptions that science is throwing out there. So in the flat Earth model, everything that we see, and no offense, I'm just saying that the science is throwing stuff out there. Like the one thing you said is the only way you could see that star behind the sun is if it curved around the sun. Well, what if that star was in front of the sun? Which makes no sense in the heliocentric model. In the flat Earth system, the Earth system, everything is within that we see is within the dome. I don't believe, and again, I can't prove because we can't get there, that any of those lights we see in the sky are physical at all. I think they're all focused points of energy. And there's so many videos out there of stars, you know, with super zoom cameras and telescopes that look like pulsing orbs of geometric shapes. They're amazing. And the only time you see a physical rock with features is coming from two sources, NASA and Disney. And Disney's more credible than NASA these days. So yeah, it's insane that people believe that stuff when you can look yourself. You know, you can see, get a Nikon P900 or P1000 camera, zoom in on these stars. And
I do.
I
have a telescope.
Okay.
It's a crappy little telescope because of a backpack for hiking. And my husband set it up and he's like, check it out. And we looked at it and it was very cool. You could see Saturn and the rings around Saturn, and you could see Jupiter and 4 moons around Jupiter. But then when I looked again yesterday or recently, there were only 3 moons and they were in a different position. They were all on a plane. Like,
well, one of them could have been behind it.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just asking you, what is that?
So what the moons basically are tiny little dots of light. Okay. Saturn is, if you had no idea what Saturn was, no one ever told you anything, you would say, well, it's a light bulb with a lit ring around it. So it looks like to me, like an LED ring around an LED light, you know? To say that it's a giant planet bigger than Earth with rocks and all of this is reflecting light from the sun, that every time you look at it, it's always perfectly lit. I mean, it's a light source. It is its own light. Here's the problem. You go to school, the teachers tell you, we live on a ball, you're a kindergartner. They spin the globe for you, they show you where you live, they tell you about gravity, and it's implanted. And everything, Sesame Street has astronauts on it. You know, all of the Teletubbies are about globes. It's all about globes. It's a lifelong of programming. But a guy in a bow tie tells you that boats go over the curve and they disappear from the bottom up, and you're done. That's it. You can believe that, and your day's over. Go take a nap, drink a beer, watch a movie. Doesn't matter, okay? You're done. But if you want to know, you're like, well, could anything else cause a boat to disappear from the bottom up? You know, could there be another explanation for why the shadow, if it's a shadow on a lunar eclipse, is always the same curve? Okay? We're told that no matter where it comes in from, it's always the same curve. That proves that the Earth is a sphere, because if the Earth was flat, and then they'll show you like a pizza, and, you know, it could make a line on the move, or if it was at an angle. But here's the thing. If you take a ball, Earth, a light source, and a ball, moon, right? I have to switch positions, right? And you bring the sphere in line to eclipse the other sphere, it doesn't come on like a perfectly curved, even curve all the way across. It starts out as a long ellipse, it morphs out, and then it leaves as a long ellipse because it's wrapping around the curve of the ball. It's easier to see it if you do the experiment yourself. Somebody just made a video, a raw video, where we're working on it to present it so people can see what's going on, but it doesn't go like that. So what causes a lunar eclipse? I don't know the answer to that, but I don't believe it's a shadow. I believe it's
pretty impossible to believe that the eclipse is perfect. Do you ever think, is there any reason, does anybody know a reason why the eclipse in the
You talk about a solar eclipse when the moon goes over the sun.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just perfect. I mean,
Right.
it's absolutely perfect. Why would it be perfect? I wonder if anybody knows, like, even intuitively, a possible explanation for that. Because that does seem, I mean,
The
I don't know.
chances of that are zero. The sun is 400 times farther and 400 times bigger. It's zero that this would happen.
I mean, there
And
is
by the
something
way,
weird about
the
that.
eclipses happen on an 18-year cycle. Did you know that? There's two cycles that the eclipses go on. We know when all the eclipses are going to happen because they repeat again and
right,
again,
right.
like a clock. All right. There's these cycles. By the way, the picture behind me is just Google the latest picture of Pluto, and it has the cutout of Pluto on it. All right. It's not even a stretch. Right. That is an official photo of Pluto. Just took NASA photo of Pluto, and you'll see that Pluto, they got a perfectly lit shot as I believe it was the Cassini spacecraft is zooming by at 60,000 miles an hour, and it got a perfectly lit shot of a dim planet far out in the deep space. And do you know that Pluto, the planet, was discovered the same year that Pluto, the dog, was created at Disney? Coincidence.
Was
Which
it
one
not?
happened first?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. The same year. That's a good question. But you to know, you have to find out. So I task you, Brad, with finding that information.
Oh, thank you for the task. I appreciate that. I might have missed this in the beginning. For what purpose would it be to convince us that the world is round instead of flat?
I will answer that right now. I'd like to get to that towards the end, but I will answer that. The reason is because if you knew that you are a free human being, that you are the center of creation and not a random speck lost in the universe. If you believe in the globe, you believe that nothing exploded, and it created everything. And then everything coalesced into spinning balls. Some of them turned into Earth. Some of them turned into a gaseous burning nuclear furnace that burns steadily for billions of years. And then lightning struck, created an amoeba that turned into a fish that grew legs, that climbed out of the water, found another mutant fish, had sex, that became a monkey, who had a deformed monkey that became a human, and that's why we're here. That's what you have to believe. Okay, and we have eyes that can see and brains that can think and intuition, all utter nonsense. I used to believe all that, by the way. And so if you think that you are just that insignificant random speck and that God doesn't exist, I was that guy, by the way, and you give up your power, then if you sit and you watch the news and all of the fear and you're like, oh my God, we're running out of oil, we're running out of food, we're running out of air, there's too much carbon dioxide, you live in fear, you lower your vibration, and you give your power away to authority they don't have authority over you. They are the few, we are the many, and you give it away willingly. Here's the thing they don't want you to know. Your thoughts create your reality, and you have the ability to nobody can take anything from you without you giving them permission. That's why they tell us what they're doing, and if we don't say yes, we don't say no, we're consenting.
Revelation of the method.
Revelation of the method, exactly. That's what is going on right now. I mean, the CDC came out the other day and said they're 94% wrong. 94% of the deaths had nothing to do with COVID, okay? They told us. That way, nobody can come back and say they didn't tell us, all right? And by the way, they're lying. It's 100% of the deaths had nothing to do with COVID. But that's a whole nother show.
I agree with you there, too. And the thing about Darwinism, I remember learning about it in, I think, like 5th grade, and thinking it was mathematically impossible because anything that was more than one single mutation, like one allele, one gene, anything that required a series of progressive mutations.
Mutations don't make things better.
Right, generally, right. So you have to take away most of those as well. But if you were going to have a mutation that didn't actually dominate the species, didn't wipe out everybody who didn't have it, that it took a series of mutations. How that series of mutations would happen in the same organism is just, that's when the math just gets insane. Like, you just couldn't possibly. So, I mean, even if there weren't evolutionary processes, I think it would be Lamarckian, where there's some feedback mechanism, or mutations just accumulate and don't manifest themselves without some kind of trigger. So I'm with you. And I believe that the reason that they promoted Darwinian evolution was for that purpose, to disempower you, to disconnect you from a bigger picture of a spirituality, of of an explanation that is outside their control. They decided, I almost feel like with Columbus, or Magellan, they decided they were going to control the entire world, and all the narratives had to feed into that.
That's right. So they have the evolution. They have asteroids coming from outer space, killing off the dinosaurs, evolution, right? We're on a spinning ball. So they put us in a prison, right? They put a fence around us. It's called the Antarctic Treaty, 1957. And at the same year, they put a fence over us. They call it the Van Allen radiation belts.
Yeah, I
Right?
wondered about that. People point to that as the reason the moon landing didn't happen. And I'm like, I don't really understand that one. I think other stuff has made me think that the moon landing didn't happen. But the Van Allen radiation belts, I'm yet to understand it.
NASA, says that right now, not now, 2020, they're saying they have to get through the problem with getting through the Van Allen radiation belts before we go to Mars. Okay, but
some people think that's why we're a prison planet. Isn't that part of the theory of the intergalactic wars that some believe?
Yeah, so I don't believe any of that. I believe that everything that's living, physically, is here on the Earth plane. We're going to get into the extraterrestrials in a second. But they went through it for the moon missions a whole bunch of times, but no problems. But now we can't go through it. If you look at the moon missions, it's so silly. When I became a flat earther before I ever looked into the moon missions, and we were having a conversation, and somebody talked about NASA being fake, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And everybody couldn't believe it. I literally spent 10 minutes, and I found out that the moon missions were ridiculous. So the moon lander, if you take a look at it, that's what we landed on the moon in. It's made from paper mache, curtain rods, duct tape, and aluminum foil. Okay, there was 3 guys in a car in there. Okay, and a car. They went up there, 50 years ago.
A car without a radiator.
Yeah, 50 years ago. They had they dune buggied around. They played golf. They were jumping around, and we can't get higher than 250 miles now or something like that. Okay, it's nonsense, And so now, people are getting hip to it. So they privatized space travel, which is really not private. It's just SpaceX, which is still a government psyop.
The guy who raised him, Bezos, Musk. That's Musk. But Bezos had I think his father, stepfather, or grandfather was in the Atomic Energy Association, and this guy acts like he was, bootstrapper. Elon Musk, a lot of those guys, if not every single one of them, has some connection to the defense industry or something like that.
Elon Musk is the head of a tunneling company, a solar power company, an electric car company. He started PayPal. He took over NASA.
And he happens to be a fabulously charismatic face person and a startup guy and a CEO manager.
There's no way. Talk to any CEO.
The most implausible thing about him is that he gets away with violating SEC rules and he doesn't go to jail.
Right.
That is the one thing that I would think no one can do.
Anybody that goes back and looks at the moon missions now, with a discerning eye, without ego, you'd be like, okay, we were hoodwinked. The problem with that is once you realize NASA's lying, they're lying about everything, your whole world crumbles. People don't like to move just to the next town or another state because it turns your whole life upside down.
Okay, but I accept absolutely everything we're on the same page with almost everything, but I'm not convinced to get rid of that globe model has never broken down for me. Everything else has broken down, but here, like, I expect things. I think the eclipse is weird. I don't think we have the right answer for that. But the things I expect happen.
Right.
In
There's
this
so
model.
there's so many things. Well, here's the thing. First with the eclipses, they're predictable. There's so many things about an eclipse. Like during a solar eclipse, if you take off those retarded glasses and stare at the eclipse, there's amazing things that happen. I did it. My eyesight got better. Okay. We stared at the eclipse the entire time.
Really?
But what you see is they don't want you seeing that. Like there's like a download that you get. And I'm not telling anyone to stare at the eclipse. Staring at the sun, you can burn your retinas. I'm a sun gazer. I do a lot of sun gazing. So my eyes were used to it. And it was an amazing experience. Again, can't prove the shape of the earth by looking up at the sky. You were just talking about something else. I had a good point.
I just things that I expect in this model. I can predict that, I feel like it has never broken down. This model's never broken down. Everything else has broken down.
So as we go along and as you think about things, there's 3 buckets. Works on a flat earth and a ball earth, okay? Works just on a flat earth, or the third one is works just on a globe earth. I've been doing this for 6 years, 24/7. Nothing falls into that third bucket. Nothing. Okay. At some point, you have to go, all right, something's up here. So as we go along, let's just look, like circumnavigation. I went from California. I went
that's
west.
What I did.
Okay. You went west and you went all the way around to Japan, and you can go east and go around and you circumnavigated. So
I intentionally did that on my business trip. I kept going in one order. I went from New York and I just kept going east. So intentionally, just to have that experience.
I'm sharing my my screen here, which is my app. It's called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. And the sun and the moon are a clock in the sky. The sun is the hour hand, the moon is the month hand, and the stars.
Cool.
If I turned on the stars, those do the seasons.
What are they?
Okay.
What are they? The seasons?
Yeah. So look,
because in the night you can see the stars change position. What is that?
So there's the zodiac, and the stars will outrun the sun once a year. All right. So the sun will move backwards through the zodiac about once a month, and that way, because we're in what is the sign this month? I forget the names, but
September.
That's why
is it Virgo? Are we in Virgo or Libra?
So, whatever. It's in it for because it's going slightly faster than the sun.
Yeah.
But the moon is the sun's going. It laps the moon every 28 days or so. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the moon phases change. We can talk about that in a little bit. But the sun is going dead reckoning west. Okay. West is a circle around the north. Okay. If I turn on the compass, the north is the center of the earth. It's the magnetic north. If you hold a compass out and you start going west or east, it's not a straight line. It's a circle because you have to constantly point towards the center. Okay. If you were 1 mile from the North Pole holding a compass, the needle is pointing directly at the North Pole. It's an actual pole. Let's just pretend. Okay. And you started walking 90 degrees or 270, dead west or dead east, you have to turn to keep that compass pointing. So that works on a ball earth and a globe earth, by the way, both. But 3.14 miles later, you're back to where you started. You just circumnavigated the North Pole. Same thing at the equator, same thing below the equator. You can also go from New York, from the United States, over the north, head north. While you're heading north, as soon as you pass the North Pole, you're now heading south, and you're to the far east, okay? So you went north and south without ever changing directions. What nobody has ever done is they've never gone south, which is any direction away from the center, and come up the other side. You would just keep going. Nobody has circumnavigated the earth going south.
That way, north south.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Right.
What about the What about I guess the endurance? They didn't make it.
Right. Well, so I'll be right with you in a second. There was a expedition that got the world's record, and you guys can see my mouse. It's going. They went like from the United States. I don't have the exact route rate, but this is what they did. They went down to South America.
George, yeah.
Then they went out into the south. Right. They came to a point. They turned around. They came back. Then they went over like to Africa. Then they went over here to the north, and they went around and they came back, and they said that's circumnavigation. It's not. They just went to the south, turned around, and came back. Nobody ever goes underneath the ball and comes up the other side. All right. Go ahead. Bri had a question, and then Andy.
Okay, just real briefly, why would someone fly that way? Because looking at your map, it looks very dangerous, and it doesn't look very economical either.
Thank you for that. That's a very pre-programmed response. But here, looking here, this is a map of flight routes from Santiago, Chile. If you want to fly to Australia, which is over here, okay, you fly all the way up over Mexico to America. You cut across America, and then you cut all the way down, and you fly to Australia. Okay, there's also, you can do it going the other way, but you know that, and they say, well, that's because they want to be near land. You know, they want because there's no place to rescue you out in the ocean. That's baloney. That's not even, if they just stayed at the same latitude as Santiago, which flew right over that short little distance over to Australia. That's a way shorter trip. And there's, you know, Easter Islands out there in the middle somewhere, supposedly what they say. But the truth is, the reason they take that route is because it's the shortest route. What's the shortest route between 2 points? Everybody?
Straight line.
The shortest route between 2
Straight
points
line.
is a straight line.
Circle, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. So here is that same route on a flat Earth map. It's a straight line. Okay, it's a straight line.
Isn't there a new flight that goes direct
Yeah.
though?
Yeah. So this is the flight
Or
that
this
goes
is
direct. The flight goes a Qantas flight. It's not that new,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of flat earthers that say the flight doesn't exist.
really
We
do
had
that.
Max Egan go on the flight, and we tracked him the whole way. We did a 20-hour live stream, and so that flight. Let me tell you some things about that flight. It varies like 5 hours sometimes. Okay, that's interesting. There's only one aircraft model of an aircraft that does that, and it's a special aircraft that only a small handful, like 5 different pilots, can fly that are military guys. And it has 7 layers of crazy paint on it. Sounds like it's for heat to me. So we're to believe that in the 1960s, you know, they made jetliners that can go 500 miles an hour. And today we still have jetliners that can only go 500 miles an hour. We can go much faster. We can go faster than the speed of sound. The sound barrier is not a barrier. It's just a mark where you break the sound speed, where you go faster than speed. But here's the thing. If you look here, I'm going to bring up the wind chart on the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. There's a current wind charts, and at 40,000 feet, let me pull that up. The winds are going, those white, that pink and red and white bands, those are 200 to 300 mile an hour winds, okay, that are traveling eastward, by the way. This is real live wind chart. So if you went into that 300 mile an hour tailwind, had a plane that could do not even the speed of sound, we'll call it 600 miles an hour, you're now going 900 miles an hour. And all you got to do is follow that tailwind around, and you can make that trip in the allotted amount of time. There's nothing special about it. Okay. But these winds change. Sometimes the flight is canceled. It's often canceled. Sometimes it takes 5 hours longer because they go across the center and they catch this inner band, which is going the other direction. But getting off the flight for a second, just think about this. This band of wind at 40,000 feet is going 200 to 300 miles an hour faster than the Earth is spinning. So if the Earth is spinning, that wind up here, which would have to be going over 1,000 miles an hour just to keep up, it's outrunning the Earth. It's outrunning the Earth. If you stirred some water or a milkshake or whatever, as you stir it, that outer layer, it lags behind. It doesn't keep up with the stir. It falls behind. On Earth, the winds outrun the spin of the Earth. Game over. The Earth is not spinning. Okay? It's not.
Is
Yeah,
there
if you don't-
nothing?
if-
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind, I kind of want to get back to a more fundamental question that I had earlier. You were talking about how we really can't trust a lot of mainstream accepted science because science is based on observations, and we just don't know if we can trust those observations. Like you said, how do we know the star's not in front of the sun, not behind it? But
Can't
a lot of your points are strictly based on observations, physical observations.
Such as?
Well, you said when you go out to the atmosphere, you don't see a lot of stars, or you said that the Earth is moving at this many miles per hour.
I'm not telling you.
Those are all observations, right?
Yeah, but hold on. I'm not telling you I know what the stars are. I'm telling you my observations don't match their science. Okay.
But what I'm saying is, why do your observations count, but their observations don't count?
They don't have observations. They have science. They're telling us the closest star is 4 light years away. That's, I forget how many trillions of miles. Okay. So their science says, do you guys ever learn about the inverse square law of light? Yes, a couple. So most people don't. I didn't learn it in school. I didn't learn it until I was a flat earther. Their science says, if you have a light, let's say it's 100 decibels and it's a mile away. If you go halfway to that light, it's now 400 decibels. If I see it at 100 decibels, it's quadrupled every time you half the distance. Or it's 1/4 every time you double the distance, okay? Right? So it's called the inverse square law of light. If you look at the moon, well, on a full moon night, if you're away from the city and you're looking at the moon on a full moon night, clear skies, you can see, you can read by it. It casts a shadow on the ground, right? Everybody agree? It's bright. It's bright enough to read by. So let's just say that's probably close to 20 lumens, but let's just say it's 1 lumen. Okay, we're going to give the globe every benefit possible. They say it's 238,000 miles away. You half that distance, it's 2. No, it's 4. You half that distance again, it's 16. You half it, half and half it until you're 100 miles away. It's millions of lumens at that point. Millions. Okay, and the astronauts take a picture of the moon, and it's like this. It's like a dusty, dirty ball. Okay, that would need to be more than millions of lumens. It would be tens of millions of lumens because he's standing on the moon for us to see it at 1 lumen.
Well, their argument is that it's a reflection of the sun, right? And also, I would say that that's not a real picture, and that they can't have a buggy without a radiator if it's bouncing that kind of light around,
right?
Because it's hot.
So again, all of the brightnesses and sizes don't work. The closest star is a light year. I forget how many trillions of miles away. We're supposed to believe that we can see that bright light trillions and trillions and trillions of miles away. Monica, I'm going to ask Monica this, or anybody. If you've heard me ask this, don't answer. How long is 1 trillion seconds? Because science throws out trillions all of the time. Trillion this, trillion that, like, oh, a trillion, right? A trillionaire, right? 1 trillion seconds. Monica,
well,
take a guess.
Give me a second. A trillion seconds is
just take a guess.
50 billion minutes.
You doing the math. All right, but if you do the math, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah,
1 trillion seconds, tick, 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 is 31,000 years. Okay? Okay. So now let's say 1 trillion miles. Okay. The closest star we're seeing is like 25 trillion miles away. And we're supposed to believe that we can see that light with our naked eye because it's traveling through space. It's nonsense.
So they don't say that it's trillions of miles away.
Yes, they do.
Say it's 4 light years.
4 light years
trillions
is
of miles.
25 trillion miles. It's the distance light travels in a year. Here, how about this one? How about this one? So we live on this heliocentric model. This is the sun. It's a yoga ball, okay? And the Earth is a pebble next to that ball, right? A marble, a pebble, whatever.
Right.
That's what we're told. So if you're on that marble and that ball is literally an inch above you, the sun is an inch off that marble, and you're looking up at the sun, it fills the entire sky, horizon to horizon, right? It fills the whole sky because it's right there. It's gigantic.
I think our idea of the scale, though, it's much further away than.
No. I'm saying let's bring it. No. I'm saying if we brought the sun literally a mile over our heads and it's not burning us up.
Yeah. I agree.
We cooled it off, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it fills the entire sky, right? So it's everything. It's your entire sky. Now we're going to move it 93 million miles away. It reduces from everything to the size of a dime held at arm's length, right? Hold up a dime, it's about the size of the sun. Yeah. So reduced from everything horizon to horizon, 360 degrees to the size of a dime.
Right.
So think about how much smaller that got. That's a lot smaller. If I doubled the distance, would you still be able to see it, Monica? Would you still be able to see its angular size? How about this? If I ate...
How many? Yeah, okay.
If I 8 times the distance, could you see it? Could you see it?
8 times the distance. If it's how much bigger, it would have to be twice as big or 60 times as big.
So no. So just think of how things get smaller. Like if you were standing right next to a car, it's filling your whole vision. It drives a mile away, it's a tiny little dot. Okay, right? At a mile away, a car is a tiny little dot. If it went 2 miles away, you couldn't see it because its angular size is too small. Well, the sun, it's filling the whole sky. We bring it up to the size of a dime. Right. If I went 8 times farther, of course you couldn't see it. That's a light hour.
Well, it depends.
That's 1 light hour. Right? Think about that. It's 1 light hour.
I want to ask a question about that, about the dime size also.
Yeah.
So isn't there a way, I'm a little rusty on the math, but isn't there a way to determine the distance by seeing how, you were saying they did that with Venus, but you need to know how big Venus is.
Right.
There's nothing they know of that they can push an airplane, can't
anything
they look
in
at
the
sun
sky
and see an airplane cross it and look at that angularly like that?
No.
Okay. And let me just think for how far away the sun is from us now. What's an astronomical unit in
93 million miles.
Minutes? So what does it take? How many minutes does it take for us to see the sunlight?
8
minutes. Okay.
So that's why I said if you 8 times the distance, that's an
if
hour.
It's 4 years away, it would have to be very big and very bright.
Right. And they're telling us lots of the stars that we see are the same size as our sun.
I don't know if we can see anything that's the same size as the sun with our naked eyes. Can we?
So the sun can hold
Kinda
like a
small.
million Earths in it, and it's made of hydrogen, and it's burning for billions of years, which makes no sense. You light a ball of hydrogen on fire, it kind of explodes in my mind. But you're trying to theorize now that there's other suns that are trillions of times bigger than the sun, so we can see them.
No, I'm not following the math on that. But I think, isn't the chemistry, I'm not a science person, but I am trying to follow it.
Stop saying I'm not a science person. You're a thinking human being that has common sense.
You're using scientific truths that I have to think through with a little bit of time. So like why does it not exhaust its fuel? Is there fusion? Is it
all speculation?
And some of right. But if you can come up with a speculative answer, isn't that kind of get you to dismiss that as an argument?
No, I mean, I'm not speculating. Like if the sun is a burning ball of hydrogen, show me an experiment here on Earth where you can burn hydrogen and make it nuclear fusion. I mean, they ever hear of star in a jar where they put sound waves into water and a little star appears bright as the sun? Okay. I mean, they don't teach you that in school, but it's out there. Just Google star in a jar. Willie, did you want to say something or?
Yeah, I have a question. It's a little off of what y'all saying right now, but as this is kind of more of a pitch towards what you're saying. I'd like to hear your perspective on it. So, if all of us on this planet, whether what shape it be, are working to make this a sphere type of mindset, but we can't get along as countries and stuff. Obviously, it doesn't add up. But United Nations, the logo, the crest, symbol, whatever you want to call it, looks like a flat Earth, and Antarctica is off limits. That's really weird to me, and I never understood that. So, can you break that stuff down? And what's past the ice wall? Do you think it is an ice wall, or do you think it's like partially an ice wall and then it's just a giant stage, and then we're all on Disney Studios?
So that's a lot of great questions. Antarctic Treaty was started to save the penguins long before conservation was even a thought in anyone's mind. But we got to save the penguins. So all of the warring countries, Russia, everybody signed this thing and said nobody can independently explore Antarctica. And then the zealots out there will go. There's thousands of people that go every year. Well, there's 15 different companies that you can go tour Antarctica. It's like touring the gift shop at a Navy base. You can go out to the edge. They'll show you some penguins. They may take you on a little journey a few miles in, show you a pole and say it's the South Pole, but it's really just a pole. And that's it. And it'll cost you $10,000 or $15,000 for 3 days. And it's a long trip to get there, and they don't make it easy. And those 15 different companies, by the way, are all owned by the same company. Okay.
And
so
they're
it's
actually
completely
just bringing you to Universal Studios the whole time too.
No, they're bringing you to the Antarctica. So here's what we do. We live in the Antarctic basin. Okay. And what that means is the world pond, I call it, is I'm just looking for an image, but we live in a depression in the world plane, and that depression is what it's called the Antarctic Basin, and the shoreline of our world is the shoreline of Antarctica, right? As I'm scrambling for a picture and I can't find it, it's all right. So Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. Makes sense. It's containing all the water. If you go to Antarctica, there's a 200-foot ice cliff. I don't want to call it an ice wall. It's just the shoreline, and it's a cliff. It's a frozen cliff. If you climbed up that cliff, you have hundreds of miles of just flat plain with little hills and mountains and stuff. And then I think it's 200 or 300 miles out. There's a mountain range taller than Everest around the entire thing. Nobody is allowed to go there. Does a dome connect to that mountain? Does a dome connect beyond that mountain? Is there other worlds beyond that mountain range? Are there other suns out there? We don't know the answer to any of this because nobody is allowed to go there. Okay?
So the idea is that we're in like a snow globe type thing. Is that?
Well, that's if you believe that there's a dome. There's no proof that there's a dome, although there's no definitive proof. If you know about the Go Fast rocket, some amateur guys in the Arizona desert had this big rocket, and they shot it up and went 73 miles super fast straight up, unlike NASA rockets, which curve out and crash in the ocean. It went up, and all of a sudden it went kerplunk and went right into something, and it stopped spinning. It was spinning really fast and went kerplunk, and it floated for a little bit, and it went into some sort of other medium.
Do you know what people who believe that, what they believe the material is made of, the dome material is made of, what the snow globe is resting on or is powered by?
The only way, the best information on that, I would say, look in the Bible. But again, I'm not a Bible guy, right? And I'm not even giving you my opinion on the Bible. But is it, in the Bible, it talks about a tent stretched out made of glass. There's also this thing called I forget what it's called. It's this royal blue ice that's made from pure oxygen, and you can only get it in Antarctica, right? And it has these crazy properties, like you drill a hole in it and then it automatically fills the hole itself. Okay. Don't know. There's Libyan sea glass, Libyan glass in the deserts, or desert glass. They say that the dome cracked and all this glass fell in the desert. All right. Other people say it's nuclear bombs, but if you get into nuclear bombs, it's a whole nother
interesting.
show, which
Lightning? No lightning? Not
they
lightning.
don't exist. We don't
Does
know.
nuclear power exist?
Yeah, nuclear power exists. Yeah, they take
Okay.
plutonium, they make it hot by letting it react with the water. It boils water, creates steam, and turns pistons. It's a steam engine.
Got it.
Okay, it's archaic. It's just archaic.
And a little dangerous, I think, or is it not?
Well, that's another thing. Radiation. That radiation. There was a guy. I'm spacing on his name right now, but he was going around showing how depleted plutonium was harmless. He would eat it and he would swim in the pools. And he's fine.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I did, and the idea of the nuclear weapons, I think Dresden was an example of a non-nuclear weapon of equal power, was it not? I mean, there's no need for the nuclear weapon concept. I think the firebombing of Dresden did the same thing.
So the whole nuclear bomb thing is a scare. But getting back to Willie, is the countries, all these countries can't get along. All stage. How many battles were in the Cold War between America and Russia? How many people died? 0. It was nothing. It was all just a military industrial thing. It's all stage fare, all of it.
That's
now,
why
are
Oppenheimer gave him the bomb, or supposedly gave him the bomb, so that
there is no
would be
bomb.
someone to create a defense war against. You need an enemy. We still do that to this day.
It's all fear. There are no nuclear bombs. There are some big bombs like the Moab or whatever, but there's no nuclear bombs. There's no nuclear bombs.
How do you know that?
Because it's provable. Like if you look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which everyone will default to, there's video of them stacking dynamite at ground zero days before. Massive, massive cases and pallets of dynamite. And if you look at the blast radius, all of the ground zero, everything was blown to pieces. But all of the buildings that didn't collapse throughout the city were the buildings that were fireproofed, and the other ones just burned down. So that doesn't fit with a nuclear bomb. Plants, there's never been a time where plants, animals, and humans didn't thrive there. 3 days after the bomb, businesses were open, the trains were running, and people were selling flowers on the street. Okay, 3 days later.
Well, what did George Bush say after 9/11? Wasn't it go shop people?
Yeah, but see, again, that's a whole other thing that's coming up. But if it was a nuclear bomb, we have more cancer in the United States than they have. Okay, it's crazy. And then all of the reporting, if you were a reporter and you reported on it or took pictures, you were jailed. There was only one reporter from the Associated Press or whatever group that was allowed to report worldwide on what was going on there.
Do you think there was no bad mutations and stuff like that coming out of Chernobyl?
No,
There's
people living in Chernobyl right now that have lived there the whole time, and they're fine. It's all.
But you mean that documentary is not true, or whatever that show was they just put out?
The Chernobyl, it's
that
complete and total nonsense. It's all about keeping us in fear and keeping power on us. Because if you are afraid of nuclear bombs, if you don't know that you are the center of God's creation, that you have the power and that nobody has dominion over you, then they've got you. But as soon as you wake up, here's the thing. There's millions of flat earthers now. None of them have fallen for the corona nonsense. None of them. They're all awake, okay? I used to wake people up. I called it exposing the big three: the New York event, the Connecticut event, and the Boston event, okay? And I figured those were so easy to wake people up to. I wake them up, and people wake up to them, and then they still go back to work. They're like, well, those people, whoever did it, they're going to go to jail, or they're going to be out of office, whatever. Flat Earth affects every single person every single day of your life. If you wake up in the morning and put your feet down and think you're spinning lost in space, you are a powerless human being.
Can you tie it into the idea of a forbidden history or extraterrestrial life, if that's even an expression
So sorry.
Accept?
Yeah, so getting to extraterrestrials, words are meaning.
The word itself,
Words, his story, his story. Extraterrestrial, territory, extra land, people from extra land, beyond Antarctica. There's different maps that show, some people think that there's rings around us, and there's another world where all of the ancient civilizations, they went outwards as the climate shifted outwards and the sun moved outwards. Perhaps our sun used to be Mars, and Mars has moved outwards and is circling the Antarctic basin, and there's another world out here, and we have a new sun here that was born in the north under a star. Kind of sounding biblical right now. But there's so many possibilities. But, to believe that extraterrestrials come from trillions of miles away, get here, and then crash, or maybe they're just a day flight away on a conventional aircraft. Maybe they're walking among us. Maybe one person in this group is actually one, and you might not even know it.
Can I ask Bry, the CE5 guy, what he thinks the real story is there? Because I think he's the most familiar with it. At least, is there an official narrative of an extraterrestrial theory? Give us a little something, Bry.
As you know, there's narratives all over the place. I've become a little fearful of dogma and committing 100% belief to anything.
Right.
Like, that's why, Dave, before we started the podcast, you asked who believes the earth is flat. I raised my hand. I also believe it's round. Depending on how I feel, it might be a pyramid shape. But I can
great
tell you,
answer is I don't know. I don't know. That's a great answer. But you should know that it's not a globe. At this point, you should know that.
I just want to say one thing, and this, again, I don't know, but several people that I do know who are channelers, and I've been getting into it. I've been reading this book, Opening to Channel. I've done it successfully a couple times.
And this
I
is
think
a
that's a
channel,
real thing.
Is this interdimensional or interspecial or both?
It could be both for channeling. But so what these people on my team and Andy's team say when they ask ET, what shape is the earth? They come back and they say, it's whatever shape you want it to be. What does that mean?
Yeah, I know. So here's the thing also. From my understanding of channeling, and there are some people that channel, we all channel to some extent, but there's some people that are more famous that I don't think that they're shitting us, right? I think they're doing the real deal. But what is it? Okay. And the way one of them explained it is that the intelligence, whatever it is, that's giving them the information is giving it to them not in word format, but then they're interpreting it, they're taking it and then using their own words. And if your worldview is of a globe, you're going to transcribe everything that they're telling you onto a globe. Okay.
Yeah, there actually are different forms of channeling.
Yeah.
So some people do, like you say, they send them the message, they interpret it, but then there are others where the person is just gone and the being takes over and starts talking, So
yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
The Seth books, I know you guys are probably familiar with Seth. That's all interesting stuff. Again, I like looking at the physical stuff. Like, we can see too far. The earth is a globe, therefore things should be hidden behind a physical horizon. But we've done observations now that are undeniable proof that either the globe is 1,000 times bigger than they're telling us, or it's completely flat and not moving, which is highly more likely.
So Dave, just kind of in your defense a little bit here, speaking of seeing too far, can you talk a little bit about, I'm sure you've seen this video, I think it was Dr. John, maybe.
Dr. John, yeah.
The video that came out seeing or observing the windmills, the power generating windmills off the coast of England. And you can possibly see France even beyond that across the channel.
Right. So and on a calm day, so on a sphere, 24,901 miles around, you have a rate of curvature, and there's a scientific formula, which is 8 inches per mile squared. Most people short circuit when they hear that, but it's really basic. A 6-foot person standing at the water's edge on calm water, the horizon will drop behind his eye line at 3 miles. Is a 6-foot drop at 3 miles. Okay. That person looking out, anything so the smooth water, they shouldn't be able to see any water beyond that because it's going over the curve. Now, if there was a 5-foot boat there, that would pop up over the curve a little bit until it went another 3 miles away and it would be below the curve, right? So these guys had the camera at like 1 or 2 feet off the ground, which means that the horizon is like 2.9 miles away or 1.9 miles away, whatever it was. And they had their known location, and then there was windmills, and they know exactly how far each windmill is. And not only at the first windmill, which was several miles closer than the last one, there should have been, I forget how many feet, 10, 20 feet of drop or whatever. But not only could you see the water way beyond the last windmill, we could see land beyond that should have been, if you had the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower on top of the Empire State Building, the top of that should have been a mile below the curve, but we could see the land, okay? And then the only Glober argument is, well, it's refracting. The land is, the light is curving up, but we proved that that's not the case, that it's not a mirage. And the video goes into detail on the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Every day there's a new video. If you go into there, if you go into there and go into the archives, just a few days ago, that video was there. Check it out, and it'll blow your minds. Here's the thing. Flat Earth, it took me 6 years to get here. Okay, I understood Flat Earth. Like you guys right now are getting it. You're starting to get it. But it took me 6 years and I'm still questioning things. I'm not trying to prove the earth is flat. I'm trying to find the truth. Okay. If you said, David, we know the answer and it's either a globe or flat, but if it's a globe and you pick globe, we're going to give you $10 million in cash. But if it's flat and you pick flat, you get 25 cents. I'm going to take the 25 cents. I'm not going to pick the globe. Because I'd rather have 25 cents than not have 25 cents.
I'm going to pick the globe and lead a propaganda campagn to convince everybody that it's the globe. as opposed to that. Right. I have a question that you maybe you have an answer for it. Maybe you need a few minutes to think about it towards the end. I'm open-minded. I don't know either way. I try to start as neutral as possible. I agree. We're programmed with ideas and stuff from a young age that become just assumptions that we never question. And as you can see, we're defying the laws of gravity here as people walking behind my camera through obviously the curvature of the earth behind me. And for all we know, we could be on a flat earth inside of a snow globe sitting on somebody's desk who lives on a global earth for all, or, I don't know. But the way that the CIA analysts the scientific method, the way that they overcome bias, their own bias, they try to anyway, is instead of trying to prove their claim, is to work hard to try and disprove their theory. What's the strongest argument against your theory that you have had to confront?
The strongest, the one that's the hardest to answer is southern pole star rotation. Okay. But again, I don't look up at the sky to figure out the shape of the Earth. Now, we've seen southern star trails circling Polaris very clearly, and that Polaris is the center of the rotation. But the stars in the south appear to go in the opposite direction. Now, is that because we're just turned around in the south across the flat plane? But that makes sense why they go in the other direction. It's just because you're turned around. Like if you have a room full of stars spinning above you, okay, and the center is off to the side, and you're looking at the center, you're going to see them going in a certain direction. But if you turn, they're going to go from your right shoulder to your left shoulder as they're spinning. But if I turn around and I'm in the south, looking at the south, they're going from my left shoulder to my right shoulder, so that they now have switched directions, but they haven't switched directions. But in the south, you'll see stars curving around a center point. So globers will say that proves that the Earth is a globe, but that would mean, that's only true if there was no other explanation. Have you guys ever seen the trick with, it's not a trick, but it's just an optical thing where you have an arrow pointing one way and then you put there's a glass in front of it, you see the arrow pointing, and you fill the glass with water and the arrow changes directions. Okay, these are optics through water, through glass, through a dome. We're looking at optics that we don't understand, okay? We don't know what's going on. We don't know what those stars are. I personally think that they're sentient in nature, but that's me. And some other flat earthers think that I'm insane for thinking that, but there's plenty. There's Bible verses that talk about that.
I was going to say, is there
100%.
Is there
Excellent.
something, I know that some people, there's a belief, maybe I'm getting this wrong. You guys probably know more about it than me, but I heard a belief where some people believe that when you die, that you might become a star or even a planet in your next life. Is there any?
I've read about that as well too,
Yeah.
and that's you're getting into the collective consciousness.
Again, does
theory.
not have anything to do with the shape of the
Right.
earth. And there's stars could be souls, right? You know, I used to laugh at astrology. How could that rock be, you know, it's millions of miles away, and that rock affect what happens to me? But what if those were energetic? They're all named after gods. That's interesting, right? They're all within the Earth system. They're all, if you look up in the star at the sky when the moon and right now Saturn and Jupiter are out, you look at them, you can see sky behind them. They're in the Earth system, right? You can see the blue sky behind them when they're out just after the sun sets, right? They're
It is
close.
weird that they do not twinkle, but the stars, so-called stars, do twinkle. I've noticed it so many times.
If you go on my app and look up the stars playlist, there's amazing videos on there. But are they sentient? You know, there's also, and Christians, some people get so bent when I bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up because I don't care. All right. Is the Son of God, the S-O-N, and the S-U-N have a lot in common, right? If you and I, Monica, are standing at the beach a half a mile apart and the sun is setting, you're going to see the sun walking on the water right to your feet. You're going to see that glare walk right to the water's edge, right where you're standing. I'm going to see the sun have its own personal relationship with me walking to mine. And when I look over at you, I don't see that glare to your feet, and you don't see the glare to my feet. And when the sun, the sun dies on December 21st and rises, it starts coming back towards the north.
I remember I was in Peru once, and I was at the Inti Raymi festival, and they were absolutely worshiping the sun as the life giver. And if you neglected the sun, he was not going to come back and give you life. And the similarities between that and
the sun is responsible for all life and all food and everything that's living. Without the sun, we have nothing. Imagine this.
One other thing I have to ask you though about the more concrete stuff that somebody had asked me, but finish your sentence.
Imagine this: the sun disappeared, went away, right? And for a long period of time, like maybe that thing I was talking about when Mars, was our sun, could have been our sun, moved out. And so you have all these nomads living in the north, and all of a sudden a new sun was born underneath the star. What would everybody, all those Eskimos, do when they saw that new sun? They'd go, my savior, okay? And they would worship the sun, all right? There's so much to it. But again, this is all, some of it goes with the Bible, some of it doesn't. I don't know.
There's a lot of that in the movie Zeitgeist as well. I don't know
Zeitgeist talks about it. I did a talk, if you go to the flatearthpodcast.com and click interviews, I did a talk with Sophia Smallstorm about the outward flow of civilizations. It's like a 20-minute talk about how these advanced civilizations could have moved outwards, south. That's south, that's south, that's south, that's south. If I'm in the center, every way away from the center, they could have moved out. Like if you woke up tomorrow and North America and everything at that latitude all the way around is frozen all summer long, everyone's going to move south, right? And then that's going to become the new Antarctica, and then a new sun could be born in the center, and these civilizations wouldn't even know about each other after just a couple generations.
I have to reel it back for a second.
Go ahead,
when
please.
I had,
We're out there.
I used to have a call-in show, and I had a guy who was calling about just something irrelevant, but he called himself Flat Earth Mark, and that started a conversation. And one guy, real old guy, he was a chaplain, a naval chaplain, and he said during World War II, he remembers being on the ship that in order, now I have absolutely no idea how this works or if it's true, but he said they would literally drop beyond the horizon and aim guns, whatever kind of guns go that freaking far, and they would have to take into account the curvature of the earth. And I just wonder why he thought that.
It's a story. We've had Navy gunners talk to us that are saying that they're laser pinpointing targets 100 miles away. There's over a mile of curvature at 100 miles. I think well over a mile, but whatever it is.
And they're not accounting for that?
They're laser pinpointing. They're putting a pencil laser on the target, and then when they shoot a missile at it, they might have to lob it because the missile.
I was going to say, don't they?
They might have to lob it because if you dropped a bullet and shot a bullet at the same time, they're both going to hit the floor at the same time. One of them is just going to land a half a mile away. Okay.
I could never get my mind around how that concept that you could drop it straight down and drop it.
Well, I'm shooting it forward. Nothing is propelling it upward, so it's just falling. So it's falling. It's falling at the same rate. Okay, so if they're shooting something, they have to figure out the drop rate, and other people go, "Oh, that's because of the curvature." No, that's because of the drop rate. All right, that's it.
But they would know if they had to also compensate for the curvature.
I want to hear from JP.
Go ahead.
What do you think, Willie, your partner in crime, gonna speak up?
He's puzzled.
I'm honestly, I'm sold on a lot of things, and also I don't know.
All right. Here's the thing. You're going to be like, okay, it's interesting. That makes a lot of sense. You're going to come up with more questions. Anybody that wants to find the truth, when you come up, all right, I think I have the flat Earth killer. Go to somebody and say, hey, how do you guys answer this? And we have the answers. Let me just show you one more time on the app.
Okay, and I want Maddie to think about if he thinks there was a flat Earth killer. I'm just giving you a warning, Maddie. I'm not going to put you on the spot right this second.
So on the app, there's a button that says a question mark. When you hit that, it has the top 21 questions that people ask. Like where's the edge, or what about the pictures of Earth, or why the lie? And if you click it, up comes a playlist of all the videos that answer that. And we've done so much work on this. And so if you get the app, you'll be able to answer all your questions. But what I tell people is get the app and watch the daily video. Today's video is Earth is Not What They Tell Us. And during the week, it's a short video. During the weekends, they're longer videos. I'll probably put this up on this weekend for people. And if you watch the video every day for 2 weeks, you'll at least know that you don't live on a globe. But this is what happens. That people go, I got your app and I took the challenge, and didn't want to wait, so I hit the archive button, which was the little play button next to the daily video, and I haven't stopped watching videos for 2 days. I hate you. The Earth is not a globe. I've lost all my friends because I didn't take your advice and I started telling them the Earth was flat. Don't tell anybody that you think the Earth is flat. Nobody does it, because as soon as they realize, okay, it's not a globe, they try to tell everybody and they get destroyed.
What's your app called again?
It's called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's the worst name ever, but there's a reason. If you just go into the Google Play Store or Apple Store and type in Flat Earth Clock, or even just Flat Earth, it's the #1 hit. It's by Blue Water Bay. Just look for the name Blue Water Bay. The app is $2.99. Why am I charging $2.99? Because it cost a lot of money, and I'm still developing it. I just put another $1,000 in. I got an amazing update. It's going to have world time and an Android widget, which is actually active today. Anybody listening to this that has an Android, you now have a widget function to update your app. But it also, I'm going to tell your listeners something. When you get it, a pop-up will come up. It says, would you like to subscribe for 99 cents a month? Okay. Or you can pay the year for $10.99. You can quickly click the X and say no, right? You can use the app as many times as you want, 24 hours. After that, the pop-up will come up one more time. It comes up once every 24 hours. You can immediately close it out. You still get everything, okay? It's because a lot of people love it. They wanted to put the development money into it, and Apple doesn't let you have a donate button. So I had to put a subscribe button. But you can X out the subscription, and you don't have to do it. But here's what happens. You love the app so much, and you're like, that Dave guy's awesome. I want to support him. You click that, and you do the 99 cents a month.
You are pretty awesome, Dave. I'll give you that. Whether you sold me or not, it's super fun talking to you. But I have to hear from Maddie, because Maddie turned me on to the whole idea of the flat Earth. So I want to hear is there a killer, Maddie, or not?
No, I don't think so, unfortunately.
There's no killer? You're down?
I can't. You're think
back?
I don't know that I'm down. I just don't know. I don't know, right? So Dave, I I got here through the moon stuff. As I've told Monica and several other friends, I was the moon guy, right?
Yeah.
So a friend of mine and I, we spent countless hours researching the moon landing and that sort of thing. So, as you normally do, you tend to stumble across some flat earth stuff along the way. And so he sort of dropped it on me and was like, hey, have you ever heard of the earth being flat? What do you think about that? And it's like, shit, man, I have no idea. So, then we spent
better than I did. I called people morons.
Well, so I'm a conspiracy enthusiast, so I'll give anything about 5 minutes that seems relatively interesting.
Dude, I was deep inside the rabbit hole. It's the name of my podcast. I went into everything, and
everything but everything.
And then when people brought up flat Earth, I'm like, "You're retarded. Get away from me."
Trying to discredit my views on New York, Connecticut, and Boston.
Yeah. So listen to this, Maddie, hold on one sec. Then I realized, oh my God, it's true, but I don't want to introduce it to the podcast because I was afraid of what the fans would do. And then finally, I was just like, I have to. I'm about the truth. I don't care.
Be you.
And the podcast blew up and it's over because one of the co-hosts couldn't handle it. Oh yeah, which is good. It ran its course 3 years, and now I have the Flat Earth podcast. It's the greatest podcast ever. Not that it's actually the sixth greatest podcast ever.
It's okay, David. You can take the baton.
The greatest Flat Earth podcast ever. Okay.
For sure. I've gotten many, many emails, and I said I was going to do Flat Earth. They were like, I hope it's Dave. I was like, it's definitely Dave.
So Dave, I do have one more question for you, though, and it sort of relates to the sun and two lights in the sky and all of that. So I don't know if this is a Flat Earth Society thing, but one of the proofs of Flat Earth that you run across while you're doing this research is that the moon actually gives off its own light, and it's cooler than the light which the sun gives off. And that is allegedly testable. I have not tested it. Where do you come down on this, and have you tested that?
So it's I have not. I had a FLIR camera attachment from my phone, and I was testing it, and I got some interesting results, but I discounted them. I know people personally that did really good testing. The problem is some people would go outside and they'll set up like a piece of cardboard a foot over the ground, blocking the moonlight. Okay. And then they stick a thermometer in there and say it's warmer. Well, yeah, you're radiating the heat. You're insulating the heat that's coming out of the earth. You can't do that. You have to do it in a way where there's no restriction of the earth giving off heat. And I've seen a bunch done with high tech infrared or FLIR cameras. And it is very clear that the moonlight is colder. I'm not a big fan of that as a proof of anything, though, because there's too many people, non-believers could look at it and just discount it. It really doesn't speak to like the Black Swan with the towers, the windmills out in the ocean. It doesn't speak to me like that, but it is fascinating. And if you look at the moon, we're told that the moon is reflecting the sunlight. Well, if you have a sphere and you have a single source light, there's a hot spot, and then the rest fades away. You have the hot spot at the center. Look at any lit ball. Look at the moon. It is equally lit edge to edge, like there's a light inside it, and it's lighting it up from the inside.
The moon is weird, and the eclipse thing, I cannot figure that out. How could it possibly be? Does anybody here have an explanation?
Have you heard of the Seleninian eclipse? We're talking about a lunar eclipse, not a solar eclipse. So we're told that the Earth is.
No, but doesn't a solar eclipse do it too?
Solar eclipse is different. The Seleninian eclipse is where the observer can see the sun above the horizon and the moon on the other side above the horizon.
Yeah.
And the eclipse starts. Well, how could that be?
Whoa.
How can that be unless they were in line? And the last one, the shadow came in from the top of the moon, not the bottom. Okay.
How do you spell that? Is this verifiable?
Don't even ask me how to spell it. Seleninian eclipse. I believe it's with a C. There's been over 50 of them documented. And then the other thing is think about this. The solar eclipse, that's where the moon goes in front of the sun. Nobody has ever, from any angle, anywhere, any optics, infrared, space station, airplanes has seen the moon approach the sun. Never. They've never seen the moon approach the sun or exit the sun. They only see the sun darken in the shape of a circle, okay? But they've never seen it leave and move away from anywhere, okay? Is it the moon that's really doing it? I have a video on my channel that shows how it could be done from, I believe that the moon and the sun that we see aren't the real moon and sun. The real moon and sun are within or above the dome, and they're being focused into here. But again, all speculation, but I was able to do an experiment that recreated the eclipse the exact same way, and you couldn't see the moon approach or exit the sun.
That one I'm going to watch.
Yeah. It's on my DITRH short list. Or if you go onto the app, what about eclipses? It's in there. I think it's in there. Or just go to my YouTube channel. It's there.
We're going to wrap this up in 1 minute, and I want to make sure that everybody here has had anything they were dying to say, something written down, a question for Dave. Anything left we can vet, but then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, I have
go ahead.
Well, I have a bunch of questions, but Dave, this has been on my mind for a while, so I'll ask you this one. Okay, you're very left-brained, I think. I'm very right-brained. I want to hear in your own words, what really motivates you to awaken people to flat Earth?
Yeah, so I hate the deception of this world. I hate how we are living in the zombie apocalypse. There's people out here that have no idea what's going on. You guys, we're not even all on the exact same page, but we're awake and aware that there's deceptions in this world. There's people walking around that believe that the government's here to help us. Our kids are screwed. Our kids are screwed. This world is being taken over in such a way. I had a high-paying company where I was making good money, and I walked away from it this year, right, to do this full-time, because what's motivating me is there's not going to be a world left for our kids. Our thoughts create our world, so they feed us in movies. They're pre-programming us in television shows and movies. What book were we all forced to read in high school? 1984 by George Orwell. We all had to read it, okay? George Orwell is rolling over in his grave going, man, I wish I thought of that. That's crazier than my book. Okay, what's going on right now is worse than 1984, but they're programming us, okay? So what motivates me to do this? I cannot sit back and watch this world be stolen from us when it doesn't have to be. We are the many, they are the few.
That's what I admire about you. That's what I find inspiring in you. And you are motivated by that transformative effect that takes hold of people who realize everything we've been told might be a fabrication. Is that fair?
People used to say, Dave, this is their only excuse is, Dave, everything can't be a conspiracy. Tell me one thing that's not a conspiracy. And I go, Sully landed the plane on the Hudson River. Remember that? Well, guess what? That wasn't real either. Okay, I got nothing. I got nothing.
Come on.
I know.
It was a little high.
Tom Hanks played Sully. Okay,
that just annoys me. He is so annoying. And what? Are you saying it really didn't happen?
It didn't happen.
Why? Tell me.
I don't know why. Right?
But I mean, how do you know it didn't happen?
Because I looked
How do I know
into
it did happen? But
listen, stoplookthink.com. It might be there. Stoplookthink.com. If you want your mind blown,
I heard the ATC guy
food and water.
crying.
There's so many. Back then they had so many different plane crash hoaxes. Why? I don't know. Maybe it had something to do getting us ready for what they're doing now with flights. I mean, I may never fly again. I'm flying to Flattoberfest, which is a flat Earth conference in October. But it might be the last flight I ever take with what's going on in this world.
Also, the magician's theory of distraction, the big action covers up the little action. That's a big action. There's no telling what the little action it covered up could have been.
Yeah. So guys, I appreciate you having me on.
Super fun. You came highly recommended, Dave.
Thank you.
I have one quick question before we go. Is this belief intrinsically connected to God in the Bible? So are there atheists that believe in the flat Earth theory?
I was an atheist. I used to listen to a podcast and I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. He's hammering 9/11, whatever. And then all of a sudden they'd mention God or Jesus. I'm like, done, you're out. And I discount everything they say. And I'm like, I'm out. Right. And I would have nothing to do with God or a creator or anything. And then I looked into trying to prove the globe. And when you realize the globe isn't real and you realize what the flat earth is, it's not a disc flying in space like they're, like they want you to believe. Then you realize it's intelligently designed. And then you realize, oh, fuck, it was intelligently designed. That means there's a creator. And that's where I stop. I stop right there. I go, there's a creator. You figure it out. You figure it out. And now if you start looking at, the Bible has over 200, there's a video called 200 verses, Bible verses that talk about flat earth. And it's in there. There's one verse that talks about the circle of the earth. Well, guess what? My table's a circle, a pizza's a circle, a coin's a circle, and so is the earth. It's a circle on a flat plane.
Well, I think that pretty much does it. That's a great place to end. And I can't tell you guys what a pleasure it was to hang out with you and have my mind expanded.
The last thing is, you may, if you take comments on your social media and stuff, you'll notice that the haters won't offer a single proof. They'll just say moron. They'll just call me names. They'll call you idiots. Guy called my show.
They'll say
we've known for 500 years. Last point, I want to make one more point for your listeners because everyone brings up sticks and shadows. Aristophanes with the sticks and shadows, he figured out the shape of the earth 500 years ago, and he'd be the most famous mathematician back then. But there was other mathematicians that came out of the same area in the centuries following, and none of them ever mentioned him. The earliest mention you can find of Aristophanes and his sticks and shadows is in 1985, mid-1980s somewhere. There's no book before the mid-1980s that talks about Aristophanes. He was created. He never existed, the experiment never happened. He might have been a person, but he never did that experiment. It's all nonsense. And the sticks and shadows works perfectly on a flat earth. For example, I'm holding up 2 fingers here. If I had a light right here, there'd be no shadow here, right? But that light over here would create a shadow. Okay, you can do it on your table. So if you put 2 bottles on a table and held the light over one, and then looked at the angle of the shadow, do some math, you could figure what size sphere your table is. It's the same.
There it is.
Faulty logic.
All right, Dave. So we're going to put this all on our YouTube channels, on our podcast. Keep in touch. I'm at Monica Perez Show on Twitter. So I don't know if you tweet.
The FE podcast, the FE for Flat Earth, the FE podcast. Not a huge tweeter, but go ahead. If you guys all send me links to your shows, I'll share them.
Can we rattle through, guys? Just say who you are and what you're doing real quick? Just I know we're on the way.
I have the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page, but the best way, get the app, okay? And there's all the information's there. If you want to find out about the True Earth, check it out. The Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app by Blue Water Bay.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. So we have the Truth is Theory podcast. We have Erase the State, and we are the Propaganda Report. And Bri, what's your podcast called?
If Andy agrees to it, we're going to go with Aliens at Ascension, and you can find us at contactinget.com. So if you want to listen to the podcast or if you want to contact ET with us, go there. That's the place. We'd love to have you.
Right on. And I'm going to check out some of your awesome features on your app, Dave. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thanks for hosting, E. Willie.